And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected.
We must deport people who are not refugees, who come to Britain illegally. Is any fair and
We've
reasonable?
increased the number of...
They cannot do it in unlimited numbers, and what is happening right now, sir, are not genuine refugees, and that really is the point.
If that's your main biggest beef of 40,000 people coming to this country, your policies fall on the wayside because you're talking absolute nonsense. 40,000 is a speck in the ocean.
Oh, let them all come in.
And every...
This was undoubtedly Nigel Farage's strongest performance yet on a fiery live TV debate. The question for the panel to debate was, how do we balance border control, diversity and pressure on local services? Firstly, what on earth has diversity got to do with our immigration policy? Nothing should be the answer. Tolerance and integration matter, but diversity doesn't. From the off, Farage goes after the Conservative MP and literally rips him to pieces over their immigration record. But the main part is when this guy in the audience brings up his recent trip to the Holocaust Memorial Site and then starts banging on about, you guessed it, 1930s Germany. Apparently, any discussion or control of immigration means we'll become like the Nazis. The guy was talking complete and utter platitudinous nonsense. I've explained in previous videos why it's nonsense. Poland has built fences to stop illegal immigrants coming in, and they haven't turned into Nazi Germany. But they do, however, have zero threat from Islamic terrorism. Farage sarcastically dismisses what he says and tells him he's wrong. But I wish Farage would have asked him, how many books have you read on the Third Reich? That's important because we hear this argument all the time by high-profile people. Again, mostly people who haven't got a clue what they're talking about and have zero clue about history. And we need to push back on people who think any discussion about immigration means we are becoming like the Nazis. They're just using the worst extremes in history to shut down any sensible debate. What exactly are these people saying? Open borders to anyone and everyone, no limit on numbers, everyone welcome, even criminals and terrorists who come here illegally? That's exactly what they are saying, and that's why the British people are so up in arms about immigration and turning to reform. And that is why Nigel Farage is now so popular. And no doubt he'll become even more popular after this performance.
How do we balance controlling our borders, welcoming diversity and addressing pressure on local communities and services?
Yeah, the bar was set far too low in terms of migration, no doubt about it. We failed on it. And we couldn't control our borders until 2020, and I think most people that I speak to do want to control our borders. We now have the controls at our disposal. We didn't set them in the right place. For whatever reason,
what's interesting is having done this programme for a while, and quite a lot of it during Conservative government, I don't remember anyone from Conservative government sitting there whenever migration came up and saying, yeah, we've really screwed this up. Whereas now, every Conservative that comes on says, yeah, we got all that wrong.
Do you want me to be honest or not?
I do. A bit of honesty when you're in government might have been good too.
Honest about all the way through my 9 years in politics. So we got it wrong. But the situation we have now, we have the controls at our disposal. We've already started to tighten those controls. Not enough, in my view, but we did that when we were in office. So that's why you saw a 20% drop in recent figures. So we can control this. As the leader of the opposition has said, Kemi has said, we want this way below the 350. It's about 700 at this point in time. So we need to secure the borders. It should be us deciding who comes to this country in terms of legal migration. That's a relatively simple exercise to do. We've tightened up things like student visas.
Because part of the reason legal migration is high, only part, because actually quite a small part of them are actually workers, but nonetheless they are workers that are being used in this country. Yeah. So if Kemi is talking about 350,000, what kind of time... No,
it's not talking about 350. She's talking about figuring way lower than 350.
OK. And what kind of time frame, realistically, could one expect that?
We can't do anything probably until 2029.
No, I know you can't, but nonetheless, if you're saying this thing, you must have some idea in your head.
Well, these controls can be put in place very, very quickly. The controls we've already put in place have reduced it over a short period of time by 20%.
There are trade-offs. Those jobs need to be filled by somebody.
In 2029, we get elected. This could be down to the numbers that people think is right, which I think we are way too high right now. There's no question about it. The other aspect to this, of course, is illegal migration, which is we've been frustrated every single turn in terms of illegal migration by the Labour Party. 134 times they've voted against Rwanda. We know it is a deterrent. We know that other countries are looking at this as a deterrent. It's the right policy, but this was frustrated every turn by Labour. We can put those controls in place. We will be able to put those provisions in place to control what most people are most worried about, which is illegal migration.
Nigel Farage.
How can you, as a Conservative Party, keep a straight face to this audience, to the nation, having promised in 2010, 2015, 2017, you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year. In 2019, substantial reductions and net migrations nearly 1 million. You've broken your promise time after time after time.
But if you're honest with people, Nigel,
you will never be forgiven for it. You haven't got a cat's chance in hell of winning the general election. Shame on you for what you've done. It was willful, it was deceptive, it was deliberate, and it was wrong. And the worst part of it, Ben asked about, the impact on communities, the impact on services. The worst part of it
He also talked about welcoming diversity.
Well, we'll talk about diversity in a second. The problem with welcoming diversity is if you do it in too big a level, you get division. And we're seeing that in many of our towns. The last 2 million that came from outside the EU under your watch, only 16% of them are working. Only 16% of that 2 million are working, which means they're dependents, which means they're using schools, the health service, all of these things. And we now know the truth, that selective immigration can be very good for diversity, very good for the economy, very good for all of those things. And you could argue that for decades, up until the early 2000s, it was working really well. But now, not only is it a catastrophe for people's way of life, not only does it deny them access to services, mass immigration is making Britain poorer. And the fact that Keir Starmer today doesn't seem to think it's a priority shows you that with these two parties, it is only going to get worse.
Nigel, you be honest with people.
We need a complete... We need to leave the ECHR so we can deport people that come illegally and take back control of our borders and our lives.
You be honest with people.
And that's what the public wants.
You know we could not control our borders until 2020. Following that, you had COVID. Following that, you had Ukraine and Hong Kong. Which of those people would you have not let into this country?
I'm sorry.
That's what's happened.
Sorry.
Now we have got...
No.
Now we have
Kevin,
got levers at our disposal.
In 2023,
you know that's true.
In 2023, we were not taking people from
You are
Ukraine.
not the only person
we were not
in this
taking people from
argument
Hong Kong.
who's concerned about migration. We are also concerned about migration. I personally am concerned about it.
If you were concerned, I'm amazed you stood for the party again at the general election, giving that level of betrayal. It is shameful.
We made a mistake. We made a mistake.
All right.
Yes, of course, a mistake.
Let's bring the rest of the panel. Man in the red sweater there in the middle.
Yeah, I just recently went to the Holocaust Centre just outside of Newark, and it was a real wake-up call because in Germany in the 1930s, they were suffering economic difficulties because of the reparations of the First World War. And those people were desperate and looking for something to improve their life. And somebody would say, look, the problem with our society is the Jews. That's what's causing the problem. We will blame the Jews because they are ruining our country. Go forward now to this country. We are now blaming migrants. We are blaming immigrants for the ways in which our society is run. Migrants, illegal or legal, weren't responsible for austerity. That was the Conservative government. Migrants and illegals were not responsible for Brexit. Migrants were not responsible for Liz Truss's failure as leadership. And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected. And if we follow the same rhetoric, the same blaming of migrants, we will go in the same way. And the future of that path is very, very bleak.
The last Labour government deported people who came here illegally in their tens of thousands.
But do you want to respond to
Tens
Sam's
of,
point?
I'm going to. Tens of thousands. So here's the point. The point
Are we
is,
returning people
if
again
people
now?
come legally and they work, that's fine. If people come because they're genuinely refugees, we've always opened our doors as a country more than anybody in the world, historically, to that.
So
The
can I say,
point,
so you
sir,
don't
is
agree with the woman here in the red jacket?
Tens of thousands of undocumented young males crossing the English Channel are not refugees in any classic sense of the word. And my fear is, since the time of the last Labour government, the European Court has become more activist. We must deport people who are not refugees, who come to Britain illegally. That is only fair and
We've
reasonable
increased the number of
to the rest
returns.
of
So
us.
can
We've
I just-
already increased the number of returns.
time.
Can I just...
We have already...
So you do not agree with the woman here in the red jacket?
The comment she made about hotels being set up in
No,
communities...
it's specific about...
people-
just one second. Specifically about asylum seekers, we shouldn't be taking any.
Well, genuine refugees, we've always taken. We've done it with Jewish people, Huguenots. We've always done it, but we cannot do it in unlimited numbers. And what is happening right now, sir, are not genuine refugees, and that really is the point.
I think, just on the point of this gentleman's point, I think is the most important point that's been made tonight, though, because we've just seen elected in the United States Donald Trump, who I know Nigel's very, very fond of, and I do think, I'm making a serious point here, Nigel, I do think the language that Donald Trump used about immigrants, they were all vermin. They were all poisoning our blood. That was straight out.
That is outrageous, Alistair, and you know it.
No, it's not. Why is that
outrageous?
Because you believe in immigration controls.
Trump is pro.
Racist.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Trump is very pro-legal. Trump is very pro-legal immigration into America. Very pro it indeed. He's not pro criminal gangs using the southern border, and
that's what this gentleman's talking about.
Well,
he's talking about the demonisation
he was talking
of
about
others.
he was talking about Jewish people, the Holocaust Museum, and genuine refugees. These are different things.
Hang on.
These are different things.
Well, what I said was you were using the language of demonising. I wasn't talking
Untrue.
about Jews. I was talking about migrants. You made the point about illegal migrants.
Yes.
Yeah, coming in there tens of thousands.
Yes.
Okay. So this year it's 40,000.
Yes.
That's a minute proportion of the 1 million immigrants you're talking about.
I know.
And
which is wrong as well.
And consequently, if that's your main biggest beef of 40,000 people coming to this country, your policies fall on the wayside because you're talking absolute nonsense. 40,000 is a speck in the ocean.
Oh, let them all come in.
And every asylum speaker that I've ever spoken to, everybody who's come here because of asylum, they're not coming here for a better life.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of them are coming for a life.
No. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's end it there, because I want to...